Yu-Gi-Oh! Has seen competitive play for over 20 years. We have seen vastly different formats that range from incredible to absolutely terrible. And as the game grew, so has the retro scene. Nostalgic, long-term players such as myself isolated the formats they enjoyed the most and began replaying them. As the retro scene continues to grow, we've seen multiple formats rise in popularity. But one still lies dormant in the eyes of players. Tengu Plant format is easily the peak of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! The format offers far more to its players than any other format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. While many formats have their issues, Tengu Plant format's issues don't lie in the gameplay, its issues stem from a lack of community understanding. You see, when revisited, many of these retro formats get viewed through the lens of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! This can both be good in the sense that deck building in these eras can be further developed and improved, and bad because people will see cards that are broken in modern and by extension assume it's problematic in its historical era. Tengu Plant format unfortunately has the card Max C. I don't say unfortunately because it's a broken, unhealthy card in the format. I say this because it's a tool people use to quickly write off the format as bad. I've heard many claims from inexperienced players to try and discredit this incredible format, but I've done plenty of videos debunking those claims in the past. This video is going to focus on what makes this format so incredibly good. So let's start with a quick explanation of the format. Tengu Plant format is based on the tournament of YCS Toronto and takes place during the September 2011 ban list. The last legal set is Generation Force, and like I said, I wanted to keep this video positive, so let's get all this shit out of the way real quick. The format is called Tengu Plant format because of the popularity of the deck Tengu Plants, and not because Tengu Plants was some tier 0 threat, similarly to how GOAT format is named after GOAT Control, but GOAT Control isn't the best deck in GOAT format. The Toronto pool is the standard accepted pool now. In other words, we don't play with Dark World and it's no longer a debate. Max C offers healthy counterplays to the likes of Tengu Plants and keeps the format diverse through enabling decks that are a bit slower to keep up with the meta. In no way is this card a main deck relevant card. In most of the cases, it is played in the side deck because the format is too diverse to warrant the card being in the main deck. It is just simply not that good, guys. It is not that good. Banny's Emptiness is at 3 and it fucking sucks. Okay, now let's talk about the diversity. What do all of these different deck types have in common? They have all made it into top cut of a Tengu Plant tournament this year alone. How is this possible? Well, when we take a look at historical Tengu Plant meta, the strong decks of the format really aren't all that oppressive, and they all have relatively exploitable weaknesses. Tengu Plants is simply a deck of one-ofs and good cards, but it's weak to cards like Thunder King Ryo and Max C. Agents are very strong, but falter due to its frequent ability to brick on shine balls that it needs to main. It's viewed in modern Tengu as a pseudo high-risk, high-reward deck. TG Stun is a powerful trap deck, but Royal Decree is at 3 and easy for many decks in the format to use. The main point I'm making is if the best decks in the format aren't that oppressive, then it really makes it super easy for more rogue strategies and unique decks to close that gap. In reality, the format is just the most diverse format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. No deck feels extremely strong or overpowered to play against. It's really easy to beat most decks, and all the decks have very generic counterplay. What do all these decks share in common? They all struggle against back row hate such as Royal Decree and MST, which are at 3 in the format, by the way. Now, what do all these decks have in common? They're all meta-relevant combo decks that share the similar weakness of Max C and Thunder King. Do you see what I'm getting at here? With counterplay being generic, you can really focus on building your archetype how it's meant to be built, and then look to focus your side deck around dealing with your weaknesses. So if you're a back row deck, you might side in extra copies of MST to deal with your opponent's Decree, and so on and so forth. It's really simple to deal with what your opponent's trying to do, and then it really just comes down to how good you build your deck and how good of a player you are. The vast diversity of Tengu Plant format really elevates the deck building process. The level of depth that goes into each strategy feels almost like a personal process. Take X-Sabers for example. The community is split on the best way to build this deck. Some feel it's best as a mid-range control deck, while others feels like it's best running main deck Decree and going Glass Cannon. Personal playstyle is truly important, and with enough work, there doesn't feel like there's any wrong answers. It might seem like I'm reaching, but this applies to virtually any archetype. With enough time, energy, and effort, you can elevate any deck to a very strong contender in this format. Just take a look at this replay of me playing Morphtronics, a historically notoriously bad deck. Would you ever conceive a deck like that making combos like this happen? The card pool in Tengu Plant format is just properly diverse enough to enable all kinds of crazy strategies. You just have to take the time to make them work. And no, combos like this don't happen every game, but it's pop-off moments like this that Tengu Plant players strive for. Most games are extremely back and forth in the same ways other retro formats are, but there is room in the speed of the format for crazy combos to occasionally happen, and that feels like ideal Yu-Gi-Oh to me. People quite literally form identity with their deck of choice. I genuinely feel like Tengu Plant format is one of the only formats with such a diverse set of archetypes that truly feel balanced or are at similar strength. The only thing that separates you from winning with your favorite archetype is skill. And this is where one of my favorite attributes of Tengu Plant format really comes into fruition, and that is the skill of the game. Tengu format truly feels like one of the most skillful iterations of Yu-Gi-Oh! And honestly, I think this is one of the bigger barriers to entry for new players. Yes, the format is easy to pick up at a base level like most retro formats. However, this format takes skill to a whole new level. This was one of the first formats with hand traps like Valor and Maxi. While there's counterplay to literally every card in this format, the decisions you make in-game drastically affect the outcome. I've seen even the smallest decisions completely change the outcome of a game. You have to actively think not only about your opponent's back row, but what's in their hand as well. Reading your opponent becomes critical to your success. The better you understand the decks in the format and how they want to play, the better you will perform. And I think this can be something that can chase new players away. This format is honestly tough to master. It's not forgiving to mistakes, and oftentimes those mistakes can be difficult to identify for an inexperienced player. For example, players will use their Maxi at the wrong time, Solemn Warning the wrong monster card, or play heavily into their opponent's back row or hand traps. As an experienced player, I rarely attribute losses to my deck underperforming or my opponent getting lucky. I almost always can look back and find one mistake that snowballed a lead for my opponent. I can't stress this enough, guys. While this format is tough to master, the rewards of putting the time in make every loss feel worth it. You can quite literally spend years digging into all this format has to offer, and there are new decks and strategies popping up as the format continues to grow. Ultimately, you get from Tengu Plant format what you put in. I genuinely feel like if you spend some time learning this format, it will easily be one of, if not your favorite formats. Good news is there are plenty of opportunities to do so. If you're interested in giving it a try, I would recommend checking out my website, tcgrewind.com, where you can see the whole library of the format. For gameplay, you can check out mine and the Tengu Plant Discord. We offer free entry online tournaments, some with cash prize pools. I'll put links to both of those in the description. And finally, if you're looking for a more in-depth introduction to Tengu Plant format, then I'll link my video on that subject in the description below. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, you guys. I really hope that this inspired you to maybe want to try Tengu Plant format, or even share this video with some of your friends that you think would be interested. I wanted to keep this short and sweet, so it was pretty easy for you guys to share with your friends and, give a really brief introduction to the format. And like I said, for more in-depth introductions, I have videos covering all kinds of topics on Tengu Plant format, so make sure you check out my other videos. But other than that, we'll give a quick shout out to the Patreon. So shout out to Richard, Beast Eyes, Slap God, My Dude, Photo Shooty, Brian Ford, and Sven Olbrand. Thank you guys so much for the support. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and have a great time doing today.